I guess with the most recent balance patch of the game, which happened after I wrote these questions, but with the most recent balance patch of this game, what do you think about the state of the game, just as a blanket statement?
In regards to balance in the state of the game, I think the game is closer to balance than it is to unbalanced, but I do think it is running into the issue of potentially being stale, in the sense that there are a couple outliers that have been so consistently meta that there is a bit of fatigue for those characters. Characters like Sojourn, characters like Kiriko, even characters like Lucio have been staples in the meta for so long where, some of them like Lucio might not be as problematic because people don't seem to really be that upset about Lucio being strong. But it is a bit of staleness. It hurts the game in regards to competitive play because seeing the same backlines and the same DPS or similar deep backlines and similar DPS lineups for such an extended period of time can make competitive play not so fun to watch. And then when it comes to playing, there's not much of an incentive to climb if, once you get up there, you're going to be being forced to play the same comps over and over and over again. And in the event that you don't play these same comps over and over and over again, you're going to get flamed and yelled at. So, TLDR, for the general average player, I think the game is pretty balanced. But it's not balanced in a way that incentivizes climbing from a competitive sense, because the higher up you go, the more you're going to be locked into those, like I said, those outliers of characters that have been just consistently meta for so long.
I appreciate at the very beginning when you said that it feels a little bit stale, stagnant, a little boring at times, because this is actually kind of the opposite problem that's happened with a game that I've sunk like 2,000 hours into and really can appreciate even if I don't play it anymore, which is Smite, which is that that game constantly gets changes, both balance changes to characters and balance changes to items and whatnot, almost to the point where it becomes impossible to follow what all those changes are and what you should be effectively doing in light of the new changes. And often it's criticized as being changed too frequently because the community keeps asking for changes, but they never know what they want. They just want something new. Like, genuinely, sometimes a balance patch will drop, and within 12 hours of it coming out, you'll already have new people talking about, or you'll already have people talking about what's to come next and what's coming out of the next patch or the next character or something like that. So I do find it interesting that this game's actually in a state where they're like, the changes we're making aren't usually huge. Some of them are a little larger than others. Some of them are full-blown reworks. But a lot of the changes aren't huge, but they're also maybe not necessarily always being given to the correct characters. And so you have characters like Sojourn and Kiriko, for example, who are just never not bad choices and very often might actually be in the top 5 or top 3 of their specific role. And that makes the game boring.
The game will always have consistent characters that are like, okay, this character is fairly consistent. But I think that the idea of who's consistent, and I think the bigger thing, even more so than who's consistent, is how long a character is allowed to be consistent and or prevalent. There are characters that they simply do not allow to be prevalent for nearly as long as others. Like certain characters, if they're prevalent, they're nerfed by mid-season patch. And I'm talking like aggressively nerfed out of the meta by mid-season patch. So they're given like a month max of relevance, and then they're out of there. There are even some characters that get hot fixed. I'm talking less than a month of relevance, and then they're put right back into a more niche and even weak state. Whereas there are characters on the other end of the spectrum that have been meta for multiple seasons straight, that have been meta for the entirety of a season. And I think that, for me, is the biggest issue in regards to balance for Overwatch, is that some characters are allowed to be meta for a week or two max and are hot fixed, and then others, they let them be meta for a season or even multiple seasons before actually doing something reasonable or even something significant to them. And I feel like that's what's, if you see anybody being upset about balance, I think that is at the core of it. Not that the game is broken, but that why is this character allowed to be meta for so much longer than this other character?
It actually makes me wonder, because I can think of a lot of characters in the game that will have their stints of being really, really strong, and like you said, they last for maybe a month. And I tend to notice that a lot of the characters that have that problem, and then, a month later they get stripped down into what they were before, just to being a regular niche pick, sometimes even to the point of just not being like good, like to the point of, right back to where they started, where nobody plays them unless they're a one trick and they think it's funny or whatever. But I've tend to notice that those particular characters are the ones that feel like they are almost, I wouldn't call them gimmicky per se, but that's the word I'll use here, where they feel more gimmicky at their core compared to other characters that have what I can generally call like a more well-rounded and reasonable kit that doesn't, like this character has 3 abilities, all 3 of them have their very consistent points where you want to be using them, whether or not they're like particularly strong. Like they just have a consistent kit that can consistently do certain things because the situations maybe are more frequent. Whereas you have characters like, I don't know, Symmetra and Torb as like the best examples of like niche picks that nobody ever plays for efficacy, right? and sometimes I wonder if like those characters have, since the beginning of the game, they've never really been that good because of how hyper-specific the situations are in which you want to be using them, right? And so when they accidentally become too powerful, or a change gets given to them that makes them stronger than they used to be, you see them more frequently. And because up until that point you hadn't seen them very frequently, a lot of people don't know how to fight them, so they're more outraged about seeing them. Torbjorn at his strongest may not be as good as the average balance state of someone like Sojourn, for example, in this hypothetical realm. But because Torbjorn is never played very frequently, people see him being stronger than he normally is, and they're like, I just can't have that. That's some bullshit. And so because of the outrage, they immediately get shut down.
I agree. I've seen similar things happen in fighting game communities where I think even fighting game communities and sometimes chess communities, the term is called novelty. The novelty of a pick, how unusual it is, can make someone have an advantage. Like, okay, even in pro play, novelties have been whipped out where like, okay, we're banking on the fact that this character might be, or this composition might be a bit unfamiliar for them. They might not know how to actually navigate this character. Like, okay, like group A, and there's team A, team B, right? Team B pulls out a really niche, weird comp that don't necessarily have better characters, but it's a novelty. It's like weird. It's not very normal. Team A is like, yeah, we're running the better comp, but we don't know what to do into that comp that the enemy team is running because we just have never played into it before.
Yeah.
It's something that can definitely be leveraged, and even in especially in ranked, where everybody's not nearly as organized as in pro play. If you have a teammate that just does not know how to play into Torb, that does not know how to play around a character like Torb or Symmetra, or even right now, Reaper. Reaper's a character that's seeing a lot more prevalence that isn't usually in the limelight, and people do not know how to play around it. They're not used to Reaper being a relevant pick. They're like, what is this? It's off-putting. It's like, huh? Why is a Reaper destroying my team? This isn't the norm. And it's very, very, very jarring for a lot of the community to see characters that aren't usually strong be strong. So yeah,
I feel like the Overwatch term for that, like back when Brig was just the meta in Overwatch 1, like that was the way to fight them in a sense, is either you played the same GOATS comp as them, or you played some other weird bullshit that like they just didn't expect, because why would anybody in their right minds be playing anything other than GOATS if it's the strongest? Like this sort of cheese factor in a way.
Yeah, I think a lot of teams are running, seems that from what I remember, a lot of teams, not a lot, but I think it was some Korean teams. Some Korean teams were running triple DPS. They would run a ball, 3 DPS with a Mercy and potentially another support, like a Zen or something. You run like maybe like a Pharah, Soldier, Tracer with a ball, Mercy, and then either like a Zen or maybe like an Ana. And it would just be this unorthodox comp that, would take angles so aggressively and just pump so much damage and try to make it to where, the back line of Brig, Zen, Lucio just weren't able to sustain enough, or in the event that they could sustain enough, DPS ults from Pharah would get online and potentially be used to delete somebody through any sustain that they had. Pulse could be used to get a pick on somebody. It wasn't necessarily a consistent counter to GOATS, but it was definitely, like you said, something that they whipped out to be a little weird that wasn't the meta.
I appreciate when strategies go that way, and while I do understand why people are like, they get mad as hell when they see someone like Torb being strong, like, come on, I'd rather deal with a Torb every other game than deal with a Kiriko and a Mercy pocketed Sojourn every game.
Yeah,
like, come on.
Yeah, I definitely would. Yeah, same, definitely same.
What do you think about the new hero? We've talked about him a lot. He seems like he's really fun. People find him really fun. But like, what do you think about him from like a fun perspective and also a balanced perspective? Like, do you think there's anything that maybe needs to be toned up or toned down with him to make him a bit more even with the other supports? Like, what are your thoughts?
Fun-wise, I think he is up there, like easily top 5 most fun supports in the game. I think he has mobility. His primary fire is incredibly engaging. Like, you actually have to think while aiming and controlling his water orbs. The fact that you have to steer it is such a unique mechanic. We've never seen anything like it in Overwatch. And adding heroes with a unique mechanic is something I want them to do moving forward. Because, not to hate on Hazard, but everyone gets, when a Hazard does get hate, it's the fact that he feels like a conglomerate of a bunch of different mechanics that we already have in the game. And it felt kind of like, like bloated. His kit felt a little bloated. Like, why do we, he's just a conglomerate of a bunch of different mechanics. Whereas Wu Yang definitely does borrow some mechanics from other characters, but he also has his own unique mechanic that we don't see in any other character. And it's nice. It's very pleasant from a fun and interesting perspective. Balance-wise, I feel that he needs to be... He's definitely in that area where I think if you nerf him too much, I think he needs to be nerfed from the perspective of high rank play and pro play. Low rank play, like the average Overwatch player, I don't think is getting nearly that much value on him. And I feel like if he gets nerfed in terms of his survivability, which is what I do think should get nerfed, I do think the acceleration of his mobility should be nerfed a little bit. He just moves a little bit too fast, makes him really hard to pursue. For 80 dive comp, he needs some type of trade-off for the amount of pressure that he puts out. And I think if they give him that nerf, a lot of support players in ranked are going to be very pissed, because that is what support players hate more than anything, is not having survivability. And that's where I'm like, I do think he should be balanced and have his survivability toned down a little bit. But at the same time, I feel that like if that happens, his popularity might drop as well, because people won't enjoy just getting jumped while they're on him. So balance-wise, I think he's a little bit overtuned, but I wouldn't be surprised if they leave him where he's at a little bit longer.
I think I guess there's one comment I have on both ends of his kit from a fun and balance perspective. From the fun perspective, to me, he feels like he feels like a character that has taken inspiration for his abilities from other supports in other characters in his role and whatnot. But to me, they feel like they have really interesting, unique variations on them that make them effective in their own way. Like, sure, they can be effective in doing kind of the same thing. His mobility, much like Juno's, for example, is good for helping him get away from certain situations, but it's also helping to replenish a resource, and it's also giving him like a type of mobility that is a bit more, I wouldn't call it rigid, but I would say it's harder for someone like a hit scan player to be able to predict what he's doing, because Juno's like, I just stay at this same level, and if you start shooting at me, there is about nothing I can do except for cancel the ability. His wave being able to apply the healing increase effect like on his nade, while cool, also has its own gimmick of being able to like knock up people and push them around, because I don't think there's really many other things in the game that have any amount of knock up to them, with the exception of like hamsters, pile drive, and like explosives being shot at people's feet. Like, to my knowledge, I don't think there's really anything else like that. So to me, he feels like a much more feels like a character where they were like, okay, well, we can very comfortably put these set of stats together on a character, because it gives him the ability to do a bunch of different things while also having an identity of his own that dictates why you would want to be using him in the first place, which is great.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to the balance thing, it's always, this isn't maybe the most fair thing to say coming out of my mouth, because I'm not particularly like great at the game or anything, but as a person who used to be fairly good at the game and played at a decently high level, a part of me is thinking like, yeah, it would suck if you nerfed him and his popularity went down, but also like, if they nerf his mobility, for example, how much would that reasonably have an effect on dive characters' abilities to dive him based on the skill level of who the low rank Wu Yang players are playing against, if that makes sense?
I definitely see that. Yeah, I could definitely see that. I think the issue with survivability for support as a role as a whole is that on average, it's very similar to fighting games in the sense that it is much easier to be aggressive than it is to respond to aggression. Like, have you ever played a fighting game and you don't really know what you're doing, they don't really know what they're doing? It's really hard to know what to do against button mashing.
Yeah,
exactly. It's very hard to know what to do against button mashing when you're like getting started. And I feel like for a lot of low rank Overwatch players, they don't know what to do about a person just running at them. even a Tracer that is not that good, if that Tracer is just on the average support player nonstop, that average support player is going to crumble under that pressure. Not because that Tracer player is so good, but because most players do not know what to do when they are being pressured. They can't handle it. The average player is much better at applying pressure than they are at dealing with pressure. They don't know what to do. Yeah, they panic. They make a bunch of mistakes. They waste cooldowns. Like, that Tracer's gonna run at that Wu Yang, shoot him maybe with 2 out of 50 of her bullets, and he's gonna wave, he's gonna dash, he's gonna ult, he's gonna use a bunch of resources that he probably didn't need, given how many shots that Tracer missed. But because that Tracer just existed in that Wu Yang's proximity, that Wu Yang is gonna waste a bunch of cooldowns, and that intrinsically gives that Tracer value.
Yeah, that makes sense. I actually hadn't even thought about it that way.
That's north of the issue. Yeah, it's just the way that flankers and divers get value isn't just through like killing. It's through also like, hey, look at me, don't heal your team. Hey, that resource that you were gonna use to heal your team, use it to keep yourself alive, even though I've literally done nothing but trace an outline of your character model and hit you maybe once.
Yeah.
That's kind of what happens a lot in like lower ranks in regards to like diver versus support interactions. But honestly, like I said before, I wouldn't be mad if he stayed at his current power level, because I think he's an incredibly interesting character. I think he's probably one of the more, I'll say it, I think he's one of the more successful characters in Overwatch 2. I think lore-wise, he is the pinnacle of lore so far in Overwatch 2. His cinematic, the attention to detail, like he's the first character in Overwatch 2 that I've seen that I can think of off the top of my head that they actually seemed to care about in terms of, let us get you to know this character. And I think it was brilliantly done. I think he's a very well done new hero.
I swear every time I'm in your Twitch chat, I always bring up this stupid fucking 30-minute video that I made about the tank changes a long time ago. And nowadays it seems like maybe because Overwatch players are not nearly as vocal about changes to like the tank role, for example, maybe people just aren't being as loud and annoying about it. But I feel like I at least see less community outrage. I see a lot less community outrage about like the state of the power level of tanks. I don't know that people necessarily have a more positive opinion about them, but at least they're not as radical of opinions, I suppose. They're not as extreme of opinions on the role in general based on the like changes that have been made. I would even say between the point at which I made that video and now, so over the course of like 9 months or whatever. What do you think about like the changes made to that role?
Okay, in terms of what my opinion of the tank role is, specifically for 5v5, I think in terms of popularity, it's maybe around the same. I think it's around the same. I still think it's the least popular role in the game. I just think most players have become, not jaded, but for lack of a better term, jaded to the reality that this is tank in 5v5. And especially with the introduction of 66, Blizzard doesn't really have a reason to mitigate or even confront the downsides of tank in 5v5 that much anymore, because you, the player, have the option of just going to 66. And I would argue that a lot of players that used to be incredibly vocal about disliking solo tank power levels and solo tank, just the whole solo tank dynamic, likely went over to 66. There are a lot of tank players that are now just playing 66, like Six, CYX, one of the most notable hog players in the community, is just a 66 player now. He's one of the best, if not the best, 66 player. I believe he might be rank 1 or at least top 5 right now on the ladder. They just went to 66. A lot of them just went to 66. That's why, like, I mean, they gave the players the option of, hey, 1 tank or 2 tanks, or potentially 2 tanks. A lot of them shut up and just went to 66. So that's probably why there's such a downtick in like the complaints about it, because like while solo tanking is still kind of a struggle, you have the choice. Do you want a solo tank, or do you want to potentially, have 2 tanks? And a lot of players are just choosing to play 66 if they are a tank player.
I think that's probably something I should have expected to happen when I was I think it was a couple of days ago, I was in the chat talking about like my very brief experience with the 6v6 tanks, where it was funny because in that whole video that I made, I was like, man, the tanks are just in such a strange spot where they're both such strong bastards that force everyone to look at them and kill them, or like, because everyone's looking at them, they also just fall over because no amount of tank buffing is going to make them capable of dealing with 5 people shooting at them, even if that tank isn't specifically going out of their way to fight everybody, right? I was like, 6v6 just makes the most sense. And then I think I got used to the power level of the tanks in 5v5 after playing the game a ton, both before and after that video, where not a lot of particularly important changes were made that would drastically fluctuate the power levels of them. that when they brought them into 6v6 and basically just removed the tank passive and made them a little bit squishier and, you know, put them in a position where it felt like, you know, if you try to do the kinds of shit that you do in 5v5, you actually will just fall over.
Yeah.
And you can't really do much to like to single players, like, you know, solo players, and whatever. And I was like, so my experience with the 6v6 tanks is that they just feel like they fall over all the time. And then a couple people in the chat were like, "What are you talking about?" So it must just be that like I just don't remember the Overwatch 1-2 tank dynamic, and like, you know, I don't know how well that may have translated to Overwatch 2 tanks. Like I don't know a whole lot about it. So it's interesting that, you know, they've just sort of mitigated the whole, okay, well, if you don't like how tank plays in 5v5, go to 6v6 and stop bitching about it.
Yeah. I mean, also, it's not really, on the topic of, like, you not really being used to a whole 66 tank dynamic, it also could be, you know, not, I don't know what percentage of 66 players, current Overwatch 2 66 players, were Overwatch 1 66 players, and some of them, how many of them are 5v5 players that have switched over to 66.
Yeah.
There are people maybe who are playing 66 right now that never played Overwatch 1 66. They only ever played Overwatch 2 5v5. 66 came out, and then they went to it, and they're going to play it a lot differently. They're going to play it, like you said, like trying to see if they can get away with the same stuff that they could in 5v5. And you just can't because your health is lower. You don't have the the tank passive, and it is frustrating. It's a different game. It feels like a completely different game. Like you're playing a different role. You feel like it's much more punishing, and you are a bit more reliant on that second tank taking some of that aggro for you. And if you ever try to play first, you will get turned into Swiss cheese.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely. I think the difference in how you play it is it's very jarring. It's a very jarring thing. I think overall it's a good addition to the game because I mean at least players have an option. But I think at this point, I wish they would have done it sooner because maybe players wouldn't have gotten so used to 5v5. Because I do think because of how long they stuck with 5v5 as the primary format, there are definitely players that are it's a learning curve. It's a learning curve, definitely.
Like, I know that there's always the problem of 5v5 versus 6v6 constantly splitting the amount of players playing your game, and so it's two different queues, and so it's messing with the queue times. So I guess at the very least, it's, like, fine that it's in the state that it's in now, when the game is the most popular it's been since its release, like, for Overwatch 2 specifically. So, like, hey, at least they can mitigate that issue, because that seems to be one of the really, really, really big problems that Overwatch, like the Blizzard devs and whatnot, had when it came to deciding that they didn't want to make that change initially. Why do you... I remember hearing this in your chat once, and maybe I misinterpreted the sentence, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like I vaguely remember you talking about how, especially like on patch days when you're streaming, people will ask you what you think about XYZ changes, and you're like, well, I didn't see them. I don't really pay much attention to them. You kind of just experience them and feel them, however they manifest in gameplay and whatnot. I'm curious why that's the route that you take when it comes to balance and patch notes. Obviously, we're two very different people, but when it comes to games like this, if I'm playing them like very regularly, I at least personally tend to pay really close attention when stuff comes out. Mostly because I think it's fascinating to just see, like, well, here are my experiences with this character, and here's what Blizzard said about the character when they chose to make these changes to them. So I'm just curious why you opt to not take that route, if that's the route that you take.
It isn't for any, like, competitive perspective or any competitive reason. It's just I'm jaded to it. I'm gonna be completely transparent.
It's like, I don't give a fuck.
I've become so jaded to the point where it's just like, there are changes they make that I think, for example, like in one of the more recent patches, they wanted to nerf Ball because Ball has seen a lot more prevalence with his perk that he can put a bubble around himself. Mm-hmm. They decided to nerf his cannons, like his primary fire, and the duration of his minefields. When I tell you that is such a nothing change, that is such. I'm like, you know what? I am of the opinion that, like, I think stuff like that just doesn't deserve the time of day. It doesn't deserve my time of day. It's like if they make some changes that I think were like, oh, that seems like a very well thought out, well intended patch change. You know what? I'm gonna give that my attention. I'm gonna give it some thought. I feel like it's worth the discussion. Mm-hmm. They just keep making these patch notes, and I'm just like, what is this?
Yeah.
What is this?
Sometimes it feels sometimes it feels like they're like, okay, here's every core piece of a character's kit. It's like they're listed down in like an Excel spreadsheet or something, and they go, okay, well, we've chosen to increase this tick number by we've decided to increase this number 3 ticks. Now we can't just leave it that way. Now we have to pick some arbitrary random trait and decrease that by 3 ticks, or spread the 3 ticks among 2 or 3 different attributes. Like it's kind of just like countermeasuring for the sake of not increasing a character's number in ticks in this hypothetical example too much, and never
just a bunch of compensation buffs in there.
And never anything out of a true like, well, we think his gun damage is actually legitimately too powerful. They're like, well, we nerfed his gun damage because the perk we gave him to bubble himself is too strong. And it's like, well, that's stupid. That makes no sense.
Yeah, Ball's not getting value from his cannons. He's not getting value from his minefield being up for an additional 4 or 5 seconds. Like, it's like, once again, like I said, I'm just kind of jaded. Once again, there are definitely changes that I think are really important to pay attention to. Like the perk change. I think perk changes are really cool and do change the way you engage your characters. But even with stuff like that, I do kind of like learning it as it arrives to me. And now for stuff like that, that is intentionally for learning purposes. Like for art, for example, big thing that I learned for art that I have applied to Overwatch is not trying to preemptively learn everything, right? I want to make a comic book. I don't need to learn preemptively how to draw every single object known to mankind. I don't need to preemptively learn how to draw every single type of building. I will approach learning something as the problem arises. I want to make a panel where my character is holding a blow dryer. Time for me to learn how to draw a blow dryer. I want to make a panel where my character is riding a skateboard. Time to learn how to draw a skateboard.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I take the perks. It's like, okay, wait, I'm in a game against a particular character. Notice an interaction that I wasn't familiar with. Oh, shit. They have that perk? Awesome. Good to know. It helps my brain remember it more because I learned it in a situation where it was relevant.
Yeah.
Like, oh, the fact that Reaper can TP now much more quickly. I learned it because it threw off my sleep dart timing, and I'm like, okay, I'm definitely not going to forget that now. Whereas if I would have read it in a patch note, just randomly with no real situation attached to it, the likelihood of me forgetting it would have been much higher.
Yeah.
So that's more so the perks, why I don't really read them. I just kind of learn them as I play. But with the general patch notes, I'm just jaded to the crap. Most of the time they're just like nothing notes. I can't remember the last time they had like a patch note that I was like, that is massive. That is really, really good. So yeah.
It's interesting because I've always been in a similar situation where I'll actively read a set of patch notes and I'll be like, okay, well, you just didn't have to do that to that character. That was so entirely unnecessary. Like, their pick rate is going to be the exact same. Their effectiveness in every single situation is going to be the exact same. You're not going to do anything with like particularly relevant breakpoints or anything like that. But for some reason I still read them. Every time I go, Junker Queen does 1 more damage a second on her bleed. But to compensate, they made her knife do 10 less damage. Who fucking cares?
Yeah, there's a lot of patch notes like that. There are so many patch changes like that I'm just saying, whatever. Like, I think right now, perks have been the biggest game changer for me in terms of power level. Like, I think JQ getting that unstoppable perk, massive change. The ball perk where he gets the bubble, massive change. The only time I see like those like micro buff and micro nerf patches becoming a thing is if over the course of multiple patch notes they keep micro buffing a character.
Yeah.
Right? Like oh, they've buffed this character's damage like 5 patches in a row. They might actually, now that original 2% is now a whopping 10%. That actually might mean something.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, it's over the course of multiple patch notes where it's like, all right, now this is a problem, but the individual stuff, I'm not really as bent about it.
Yeah, generally speaking. Especially if in your personal experience, most of the time they don't even make a difference anyways. Like you said, there's no point in looking at all of that and then going and playing a game and you're like, oh, well, it's still the same game. I'm still seeing the same characters. Like, I'm not being affected by these changes in any capacity. Like, I don't notice any difference.
Yeah. Another thing also is I do pay attention to the patch notes that I do feel actually change stuff. Like, for example, Genji's deflect getting nerfed to 10 seconds. That's an actual nerf. That is an actual thing that is relevant to learn about. That is an actual freaking balance change. And so I'm like, okay, that is definitely something to think about. I kind of ignore the noise. Like, usually the stuff that's generally pretty prevalent kind of gets thrown out the most, like in like on social media and on TikTok and stuff. Yeah. So I end up finding out about it. But the noise stuff, like, no one's raving on TikTok about how a character got their damage nerfed by 2%. Yeah. No one cares. Everyone's talking about the fact that Genji got his deflect cooldown nerfed. That's what people are going to talk about. So I feel like the more prevalent nerfs and buffs end up getting thrown around more often anyways. So I feel like we find the relevant information whether we intend to or not.
I'm glad you brought up the perks, because the perks were obviously one of those things that I don't know why I expected the perks to not be like as big of a deal as they currently are. I think it was because the perks were added after like Stadium as a game mode had just generally released, and so I was like, oh, this might just be another weird experimental thing they're doing, not realizing they're just like a permanent part of the game. But from your perspective, this is kind of a question in two parts. Have you noticed any social changes as a result of the perk system being added to the game? Potentially more specifically, have you noticed any changes that have reduced the incentive for players to counter swap? And if so, do you think any of that has anything to do with the perk system being added?
I absolutely do think perks have de-incentivized counter swapping for a number of different reasons, and I think it's one, investment in your character, investment in getting your perks. Like, you've spent all this time to get your perks on this character, and for certain characters, the perks help mitigate bad matchups to a certain degree, to where you kind of believe that you can overcome this bad matchup. There's also the instance of the fact that, like, for a lot of people, counter swapping means having to rebuild that that new character's perks. Now, granted, the reason why I don't think it's all the way counter swapping is because towards, if anybody didn't know this, towards the later parts of the game, you do get your perks faster, right? So if you switch characters, let's say you have both of your perks by like towards the like later parts of a round, and you switch characters, that second character that you swap to, you'll get their perks more quickly than usual. So they do have an accelerated perk gain later on in the match, so you can still swap. Like, it doesn't completely de-incentivize swapping, but it does mildly. And I do, purely from a social perspective, I do think players have shied away from counter swapping because they are so invested in the perks of their characters. Because the perks are good, perks are fun. You know, you have Doom has a perk where he can block projectiles. You don't have to swap now that they run a bunch of CC. You can just get that perk and you can be kind of cool. Ball has a perk now where he can put a bubble around himself. Oh, okay, they have a Sombra or a Cast. I don't necessarily have to swap. I can just pick the right perks and I'm fine. You know? So, it is a character by character thing, because there are some characters whose perks are kind of cheeks. And you're probably going to want to swap regardless. Like, I think Lifeweaver's perks are really bad. I think he has some pretty bad perks. So I don't really think that is that relevant. Also, I think Reinhardt's perks, most of his perks don't help his matchups that much either. So,
fair.
It does depend on the character that you play, but generally speaking, I do think they have socially de-incentivized and socially pushed players away from counter swapping.
Yeah. Do you think it's also encouraged players to like generally become better at the game, because certain perks do legitimately change the entire way that a hero plays, or changes the I mean, obviously it'll change the matchups that they have, but it'll change things on a level down to like, oh, well, I might position here differently because I can do something with this perk that I have, or I might want to play further up because I have something to help keep me safe so that I can potentially get more damage out, things like that. Do you think these perks are generally making people better at the game because they are trying to learn more facets about what to do, like what new opportunities these perks open up for them? Or do you think it's just making the way that they already want to play stronger because, say something like, Ana can fuck up the position of one of her grenades if she understands that it can also just bounce off of something?
I'm gonna preface this response with the fact that I am influenced by the fact that I make content on TikTok. So my opinion of the community is very heavily influenced by my interactions with them on social media. And I'm going to say this as nicely as I can. No, I don't think the community is thinking that deeply about perks. I think the average player, the reasoning comes after the perk selection. I think most players are picking a perk by accident or because it seems cool to them, and then they come up with justifications for their choice later on. They don't theory craft prior to the perk and think, I wonder what possibilities are going to be opened up by me selecting this perk. They pick a perk, maybe they accidentally get value out of it, and then they come up with an argument afterwards, or they just copy whatever perk their favorite streamer or favorite content creator in general says is good for that character. The average player just really isn't theory crafting that hard. Most of them are just kind of retroactively coming up with the reasons for their choices rather than preemptively trying to plan or strategize like, okay, I'm picking these perks for these reasons. Like, I have a reason, then perk. They pick perk and then reason. That's the way that the average player typically thinks.
That is a fair assessment of the way that the community treats certain things, because even as I was trying to give like a hypothetical situation in which this opens the doors for how people play the game, like I'm like I can't even actually immediately think of anything that directly affects the way that a character plays that deviates from the way that the player was already playing the character.
Yeah, I mean, the best way I can, a better way I can explain it is, think of it, it's typically people who make content that discover and spread tech anyways.
Yeah.
And perks are just opportunities for new tech. So it's usually the content creators that if they get, the perks get released, they read the perk description and are like, wait a minute, maybe it can do this. Like, for example, people who thought, wait a minute, oh, Groggy? Sleep Dart perk for Ana? I wonder, does that slow this ability? Oh, wait, it does. Oh, wait, and then they popularize it and they make it notable. Things like that, like, it's usually the content creators that are most incentivized to theorycraft because it's kind of your job to come up with new content ideas for the game. So it's,
Yeah.
the average player isn't really as incentivized as somebody who makes a living playing the game to come up and theorycraft about new things and new ways that abilities and stuff can work.
Speaking of the content creators, how do you personally feel in depth about the notion from players that streamers and content creators are the thing that is ruining the game? Because I know you've talked about it on TikTok before, but I kind of just want to get your more nuanced take on the whole situation now that you have more than a minute 15 to talk about it.
I have two perspectives on it. Both of them are that the take that streamers are ruining gaming is silly. The first one is rooted in the idea that communities are the ones that platform streamers. I have no stream without my community. The idea of blaming streamers for me is just outsourcing accountability, right? No one is making you take that streamer's tier list as law. No one is. No one is making you take that streamer's word as dogmatic, just the law of the land that everybody has to follow. No one is making you do that. So when these communities blame these streamers for like certain ideals being prevalent within the community, y'all are the ones that platform that person. Like, you are the court of public opinion in regards to the community. Y'all can just say y'all don't agree with it. Like, that's how life works. That's how anything works. Like, if a dude says, hey, I think we should all go to Taco Bell, and another guy's like, hey, we should all go to Arby's. Everyone's going to collectively turn and look at that guy that suggested Arby's and say, shut up.
I think they're going to say shut up for different reasons. I think people generally like Arby's less than Taco Bell, but I never have I heard any good opinion about Arby's ever.
Yeah, exactly. But, exactly. But, like, generally, like I said, like, yeah, it's no one's gonna sit here. You don't have to. If you don't agree with the streamer's take, you just don't have to agree with it. That's fine. You can disagree with the streamer. That's fine. And the second part, well, the first part, to encapsulate the first part, is way too many people are sitting here blaming streamers for the downfall of games and downfall of these like gaming communities when the communities are the ones that are platforming these streamers. And the second one is that a lot of these streamers just aren't nearly as, like, how do I put this? The effect that they have on these communities aren't nearly as bad as people make them out to be. A tier list isn't ruining the community. Necros isn't ruining the Marvel Rivals community. What Necros said in the Marvel Rivals community is stuff that people have been saying for the longest time. Now, you can make the argument that he's toxic. You can make the argument that he's stating his stuff very toxically. People like him maybe have some very toxic comments towards support players. Absolutely. But he's not him and content creators like him are not single-handedly ruining the community. They are just, once again, they are being platformed by the community. If his take was generally disagreed with by the majority of the community, he would lose his platform for saying it. People would say, bro, L take. But the fact of the matter is that a bunch of people agree with these streamers' takes. And I think a lot of people struggle to accept that. For a streamer to be able to make a take and for them to be able to keep their platform and not only keep it, but gain more popularity off of it, that means that a significant portion of the community, or at least the more vocal part of the community, are rocking with that take. So, like, are they ruining the community? Or are they just ruining the community for you? Like, do you just not like their take, which is fine. But for a lot of people, they think they're great. There are people that love flats. There are people that love CarQ. There are people that love these content creators. It's just maybe the people who are saying that Twitch streamers and content creators ruin the communities, they're the ones that don't. Just because they don't doesn't mean it's objective that they're ruining these communities. So yeah, TLDR, number one, it's the communities themselves that actually platform these streamers, so there's not really much room for them to complain. And two, these streamers would not have platforms if the majority of the community did not like them. or at least not majority, but like if large portions of the community did not like them.
Yeah, there's something to be said about this. This is the thing that I enjoy a lot, which is that oftentimes these streamers do the same kinds of shit that regular gamers do, where they say something inflammatory because they're pissed off or they're frustrated or because maybe they actually believe that. But the simple fact that Necros has... How many people are typically watching his stream at any given point in time? I don't know. Thousands of people? Literally just because of the fact that he has a couple thousand eyes on him anytime he does something means that anything he's doing is very often, like, going to be seen by a lot more people than the average person who might think the same thing that he does, if not something worse than what he does.
Yeah, oh yeah, exactly. So many eyes on it. And the fact that, once again, like you said, gamers get tilted and just say some wild shit. I'm not justifying some of that wild shit, but like, there was a saying in the fighting game community, never take somebody's tweets seriously after they just lost in top 8.
Yeah.
Like, they're gonna complain about some character being broken, and their character is not broken, they're just mad that they lost to them in top 8. They're just mad that they lost. I'm like, yeah, gamers are sore losers, man. Like, gamers are sore losers. All it takes is a streamer losing a game, feeling like it was their support's fault, and then being like, you know what, guys, I feel like support players are boosted. And guess what? There's probably some streamer that averages 10 viewers that has said that exact same thing, but it just so happened that, you know,
only 10 people are watching them. Yeah.
Yeah, like, so like, it's like a lot of also, that's another thing. Like, you actually, that's a great point to bring up. Sometimes these streamers are just, they're people. They're raging. They're just raging. They're literally just raging and being sore losers a lot of the time. Like, I'm a sore loser sometimes. I said every take I make on stream is not valid because it's not a well thought out, constructed take. It's sometimes it's a heat of the moment.
Never listen to an Overwatch streamer right after they just lost their promo game.
Exactly, bro. Exactly. If I just lost my promo game and it was because one of my teammates ran a certain hero, hell yeah, I'm finna shit talk that hero. Fuck yeah. The fuck? Hell yeah. My man, yeah, that hero sucks. Don't ever run that shit, chat. That chat hero's F tier, chat. F tier, chat. Like, I'm a person. I'm a human. I have biases. My streaming takes are never well thought out. They're never well thought out takes. So most of the time, they're just, you know what? Time to yap. And I just yap. So yeah, so that's more or less, that's actually a really good point that you brought up. So yeah, like, people need to take these streamers' takes a lot less seriously and understand that guy is just you, but with a mic.
Yeah, that's you all with a mic and who happened to get lucky to amass a couple thousand people watching, you know?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and there's actually one more thing I'd like to bring up, which is that I mean, this is definitely more of the community's fault, as you mentioned in your first point, but I think the other big thing is that, like, a streamer with 1,000 viewers is going to say something inflammatory because they lost their promo game. Then suddenly all those 1,000 people, not all of them, a good majority of those 1,000 people are going to be like, oh, hold on, wait a minute. He's cooking. Or you're going to have a good chunk of them, that are like, what are you talking about? You are just being a bitch baby. You're just whining about nothing. But because them saying something inflammatory probably, let's say, blew up on social media or something, suddenly now they have a ton of people who have come in and their publicity is boosted specifically off of this inflammatory comment. And at that point, they're either like, well, I'm gonna just keep riding this train as long as it goes, or they're like, I don't want to take accountability for the fact that I said something stupid. So they're gonna double down on what they said, which is gonna make people even more it's gonna make people think that what they're saying is even more true. There's that thing I've talked about on my TikTok a bunch where I'm like, the problem with a lot of opinions generated online is that you generate your opinions off of what somebody else says, who probably got their information from what somebody else said, and eventually it'll go all the way back to a train where it started with this one guy who thought he knew something about a particular subject so well that he spoke it with so much confidence that the guy who heard him say that thought he was speaking the truth. And then it continues a train of people who think that it's the truth because the person who they heard it from said it was the truth with so much confidence. And then you take that and apply it to 1,000 people watching a Necro stream, and then suddenly, randomly, most of the Marvel Rivals community is either on the polar end of supports are boosted or you can't do anything without me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's literally, you say something with enough confidence and conviction, you will convince some people.
Yeah.
You will convince some people that you know what you're talking about, whether you intend to or not. And then once again, when people are typically pretty angry or tilted on stream, they say the stuff they say with a bit of conviction. Oh no, chat! I'm certain. All players of this character are boosted. I'm not even gonna argue with y'all on that, chat. You just saw the game I just played, right? Yeah. They're going to say it with utter conviction and confidence. And like you said, a lot of people, when confronted with, hey man, maybe that take wasn't the best, are gonna be like, nah, I'm right. Nah. You're wrong. Nah,
Get
good.
them in another stream where they once again lose their promo game and they just double down.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, yep, I agree.
Speaking of Marvel Rivals as well, these questions just keep segueing into each other perfectly. This is a bit long-winded, but I think it's a conversation that has been at least slightly brought up once or twice in stream before. What I've noticed that is very interesting about Marvel Rivals Ranked compared to Overwatch Ranked is the fact, at least from what I've noticed, a lot of Overwatch Ranked games, the people who play your ranked games with you are pretty bad at the game. And most of the people who aren't really bad at the game aren't good enough to overcome the team's shortcomings and get their team to win, even by, like, the skin of their teeth, right? Like, you know, the degree to which your teammates are worse than you is very much up for debate, but, you know, there is still something to be said where oftentimes you may be able to be good enough to overcome your team's shortcomings. Oftentimes maybe you aren't, right? Whereas what I've noticed in Rivals is that everything in the game is insanely power crept to the point where it's really hard to, like, fuck up a push or fuck up, like, one of your support ultimates or something so badly that it loses you the fight, because most of the time pressing Q just has a really big impact on the game. What do you generally think about, like, the ability to climb in Overwatch versus Marvel Rivals, whether you're in stacks or whether you're by yourself?
I have not played Marvel Rivals any higher than, like, Diamond. That's the highest I've been, because I just kind of, like, fell out of. I kind of got bored with the game at that point.
Yeah.
I will say Marvel Rivals is just an intrinsically easier game, just because you're able to gain more SR, more rank than you lose. I feel like that's the biggest thing that kind of destroys it. Even outside of character design, because, like, yeah, character design wise, there are some pretty easy characters in Marvel Rivals, I think, overall. But I don't think that right there isn't the comparison that I think is fair, because once again, Marvel Rivals is just so much newer than Overwatch. I'm not gonna sit here and expect them to have the depth of characters that Overwatch does. It's the ranked system itself that's the problem. Character design wise, impact of abilities and stuff like that, you know, I'm not gonna hold that against them. They have some time to fine tune that. They should have never came out with the rank system that they came out with. That Chrono Shields, terrible competitive concept. The idea that you can climb to GM with a negative win rate is horrible. That is a horrible, horrible, horrible idea. And I know there are a lot of people going to push back against that and say, oh, no, you know, not everyone's a sweaty tryhard. You don't got to be a sweaty tryhard to get a positive win rate. You don't have to. You do not have to. I quite literally hit top 500 while working 2 and 3 jobs. It's not that bad. Is it easy? No. But at the end of the day, dude, positive win rate is the bare minimum. I'm talking 51, 52% win rate. Just, if you cannot put together a positive win rate, that's a problem. That is a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's oh man, yes. Yeah, bro, dude, like, everyone thinks you have to be jobless to climb in these video games, and I think that's another thing. I think the idea of jobless behavior is so further perpetuated within the Marvel Rivals community, and I think that's why there's so many people that push back against the idea of having to need a positive win rate to climb, because they're like, well, I have a job, how can I get a positive win rate? And it's like, dude, most of the people that have positive win rates have jobs. Like, I don't, like, for example, when you go through top 500, obviously we made the joke like in Overwatch where, like, top 500 isn't actually 500 people, which is kind of true even in Marvel Rivals as well. But when you look through this, you will see names of people who aren't content creators and aren't pro players. Some of these people have jobs. There are people with jobs that are in top 500. I've met people who are top 500 in Overwatch, like through games, that have pretty respectable jobs. There was one girl I met who's a realtor, and she's a top 500 player. I've met one dude, he's top 5, he's like top, like maybe like top 400, like he's like 350, 370, so he's not high, but he's a freaking, he's not a business owner, but he's like a co-owner of like a startup business where he lives in Canada. Like, there are people that are like very like economically successful and decent and good that are good at video games. Like, it's not you're jobless thing. And once again, I think to segue back to the conversation of like the difference in ranking up experience, I do think the Marvel Rivals community, it is a overall easier experience to rank up in that game, but it's a much more miserable experience because of the attitude of that community. Now, granted, those people exist in Overwatch, but I just think it's infinitely easier to climb in Marvel Rivals than it is to climb in Overwatch. I think Overwatch is just an objectively more difficult game, like not even somewhat comparable. I think it's like Overwatch is like comparatively 8, and Marvel Rivals is like a 5. It's just like and that's not to shit on anyone who's good at Marvel Rivals. Like, if you're good at that game, you're good at the game. I'm not one of those people, oh, you're good at Marvel. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh, GM in Marvel Rivals is gold in Overwatch. I'm not gonna sit here and be one of those people. I just think that the ranked system itself just allows people. The fact that you can climb with a negative win rate is insane to me. That's what I don't like.
Yeah, and there's even something to be said about, like, sometimes whether or not you can rank up in Overwatch feels like it's up to luck, and not in terms of who you get paired with or who bans or what map you get on or any of that bullshit, but it's like, oh, I just won the hardest game of my life and I got an expected and I'm gonna jump out a window.
Yeah, I will always down the hill that Overwatch is a mental battle. That shit is a fucking mental battle.
Overwatch
bro.
ranked would be better if they just didn't have those modifiers.
Modifiers, I think, were one of those things that people thought were really cool at first, but I think it's just Blizzard's way of saying, hey man, we cannot make the perfect match, but here's an uphill battle for your troubles.
Yeah, and if it felt like it was actually more, if it felt like it actually correlated more to like how the actual match, like quality of the match should have been versus what it was, maybe it'd be fine to have, but it genuinely, like, every game of competitive that I see where there's modifiers in play, it feels completely backwards all the time. And maybe
it feels backwards, or at the very least off.
Yeah, and a part of that could have something to do with the fact that, like, Overwatch uses very different metrics to determine who actually should probably win the game based on other stuff that they internally calculate. But then, like, none of that matters if you have a teammate who has decided that they just play competitive all day and all night like they're playing quick play, and so they just don't bother to actually, like, have any amount of competitive spirit. That's something that the Overwatch, like, matchmaking system can't exactly account for. So, like, you know, on top of it just being strange and not feeling like it works even in the best of circumstances when actual games are actually being competitively handled by the players, but then you also have tons of players who just are beaten and tired but still play competitive for some reason, and they make what otherwise would have actually been a really easy game really difficult.
You can't really account for player effort, and that's the biggest variable that I think is the problem. I've made TikToks about it in the past. Like, ranked systems only work. A ranked system can only work if everyone is trying. Any ranked system is going to try to put people of equal skill against each other, but if any person on either team decides to try to manipulate that and try to manipulate that variable of skill, it becomes a problem. Like, oh, I'm going to try less. Okay, you've thrown off the matchmaker. I'm going to put someone else on my account that is of a higher skill level. You've messed with the matchmaker. That's the biggest problem. Those are the things that are fucking up the matchmaking system. It's not the matchmaking. Like, matchmaking system has its problems, don't get me wrong. But the bigger issue is the players. The players keep trying to mess with and manipulate the variables, either intentionally or unintentionally. They keep trying to intentionally mess with the variables by duoing with people that are higher ranked than them, or duoing with people that are lower ranked than them to get easier lobbies. Or they're withholding effort by saying, I'm not going to try, I'm tilted from my last few games, so I'm not going to try this game. And it's like, okay, well, like you said, what could have been an easy game is now incredibly difficult. And it's just, it's something that the devs 1000% can't account for in the matchmaking system, but it's something that we as a community just need to admit, like, just as a mutual respect to everyone else that has decided to queue, hey, let me at the very least try my best, because we've all decided to queue into this game, let me at least try.
I forgot about the fact that, Marvel Rivals competitive is very, very forgiving. I wish I could remember the exact numbers, but I think, and this is an interesting situation, but when ranked first, like, when the ranked system was kind of first being implemented, which is to say the beginning of the fucking game, when it came out, I had two friends who really, really, really enjoyed playing the game. And for the record, within the first, like, 4 months of the game being out, I think me and my friends had clocked 200 hours in the game. And, we were mostly playing the game in 3 stacks, and we had one particular season where I think we went from, gosh, maybe low gold or a little lower than that even potentially, just because that was the basis for the matchmaking system at the time, and won like, I think somewhere in the realm of like 14 to 20 games in a row before we lost even one for the entire, and it wasn't like we were on a 14-game win streak. We had been playing the game over the course of like a week, or a few, or whatever, and we were on our like fresh season stats, so we hadn't lost any games in that season at all, and we had just played 14, 15, 16 games plus in a row over the course of a couple of days before we even lost one. And I'm
Oh,
like,
God.
I know that we personally were. I don't know that we were necessarily better than everybody else, but we had the opportunity. We had the benefit of being in making up half the team, one person in every role, and we could communicate really well and have a lot of synergy just to make sure that even if it was the wrong play, we were all doing it at the same time to develop that level of coordination. But that said, the game should never have allowed us to do that. Like, not in terms of stacking, but like, there's no way that the matchmaker should have just allowed that kind of slaughter to happen. Like, that's fucked up.
Yeah, yeah. I don't really know how these games. I don't really know. These matchmaking systems cannot be perfect, but there definitely are some outliers like that happen, and you're like, how? How is this allowed? How does this happen? How is this even possible? And so yeah, I definitely. I don't know. I think Overwatch. The only time I've ever seen something like that happen in Overwatch, obviously, not necessarily similar situation, not towards the beginning of like them implementing the rank system, but obviously when you're new on a new account, that can definitely happen. And I guess since I do know that you were 3 stacking. So I don't know. Maybe stacking just has like a freaking massively large effect in Marvel Rivals. I don't know, because like that game, I've never stacked in that game before. So I don't know if stacking just has like a much bigger advantage in that game. Could be, because like I've stacked with friends and lost every game. I ain't never been on a damn near 20-game win streak with friends.
I wouldn't be surprised if stacking in Marvel Rivals probably has a bit of an edge, not only because of a lot of the things we've been talking about like the game generally being easier and players by extension being worse at the game because they are not really given much incentive to become better at the game, whereas all 3 of us came from thousands of hours of Overwatch, right? But it's also the fact that in competitive, you're not locked to a 2-2-2, and you're not locked to any particular role. So, like, we would all be in the role that we were really good at, but we also had characters and other roles that we would play in case something bad happened. And so sometimes it would be like, okay, our DPS are not doing anything. I need our guy on tank to go DPS for a little bit because he'll just kill everybody. And then suddenly we'll be fine. So I think that probably could have something to do with it. Because if I could be, god tier support in Overwatch, but like supports, while they can do a lot, they can only do so much if you have one particular character or player who is not doing very much. And so, again, I'll try my damnedest, but there's nothing I can do. There's not a lot that I can do to both maintain a level of support that the team needs while also being able to make up for the fact that the class that is designed from the ground up to kill people is not killing people.
I mean, I do think, definitely in Marvel Rivals, I do feel like, the argument of Marvel Rivals is that there is more carry potential across characters. I do feel that the support role in Marvel Rivals is a bit, I don't know, it's just kind of lacking. There aren't many support characters in that game that I feel that I'm not feeling any Kirikos, I'm not feeling any Baptistes.
No.
I'm not feeling any Zenyatta's. Mantis and Adam are supposed to be like the DPS, and Ultron. Now, Ultron is the closest thing they've come to where I'm like, okay, maybe this he can actually kill some stuff. But that's just one. Like, I feel like in Overwatch, you got multiple support characters that can literally just say, you know what, I'm finna do this myself.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Like, I will say there is something with the Marvel Rival supports where, like, oftentimes, like, I mean, Mantis is the perfect example. I'm like, I can heal a lot on Mantis. You can also take this seed in the face, and then I kill them. Hold on, pause. My bad. I didn't mean it like that. But no, but yeah, there's definitely like the healing numbers are so insanely bloated to deal with the insanely bloated damage numbers of the other roles that like they're kind of forced into that playstyle, and you can definitely weave in some amount of damage to be able to help focus fire stuff down, and you can get great success out of it. But the classes are or the characters in the support role are definitely not really intended to go, hold on team, give me 30 seconds, I'm going to go up and kill the 2 guys on the high ground who are messing with us.
I mean, there are some players that I've definitely seen get away with a lot more aggression. Like, there's a guy named Quad on TikTok. He's a really good Adam player. He is Adam. That man is Adam. He is perfection. I ain't gonna hold you, bro. He just might be perfection. But so like I've seen a handful of support players in that game really get value out of the damage that their character can provide and genuinely get picks. Usually with winning duels, like, hey, this Spider-Man decided to come fuck with me. I'm gonna fuck him up in return.
Yeah.
But not that many supports in Marvel Rivals definitely do not seem like they can go take an angle aggressively, get a pick, and dip the way Kiriko can.
Yeah.
Like, I can straight up go on an off angle as Kiriko in Overwatch, 2-tap or 3-tap somebody, and then TP back to my team. I'm not really seeing any supports in Marvel Rivals that can even do something adjacent to that other than like an Ultron going on an off angle, getting a pick, and then flying away. And that's one character that also doesn't do it as well as Kiriko can.
Yeah, and that's also because, like, and the crazy thing about the difference between those two is the reason Ultron can do that is because his ability to be like an actual legitimate support to be able to heal and provide utility to keep his team up is like piss poor. Like,
yeah,
I played that class and I was like, I want to be able to have like a healthy mix of being able to output damage and be able to heal people and whatnot. And I picked up Ultron and I was like, what the fuck is this guy? What is he doing? Like, come on. So stupid.
Yeah, he's a cosplay. Bro's a cosplay.
Yeah, he's like, I can put this little nanobot on you, and I'm like, fuck you.
Well, I will say, I think this isn't one of your questions, but this is a topic that I kind of do in the future want to make a video on, is the social impact of early game design and early game balance for these games like Marvel Rivals and Overwatch. And what I mean by that is that I think with the earlier iterations of Marvel Rivals being these characters that greatly value sustain, it has conditioned the community to value sustain above all else.
Yeah.
Like, you saw how they took Rocket, made his ult, they gave him sustain. People always make jokes, oh my god, all the ults in Marvel Rivals are just healing circles. A lot of them are healing circles. They gave Jeff a healing circle now. Jeff got a healing circle now.
Yeah, because people don't like the community didn't like the way that the other roles that didn't have you can't die for 8 seconds healing circle behaved. Like, I'll admit, like, I didn't like Jeff before his rework. I don't know about his power level now, but like, I really just did not find him fun at all to fight against in the game, because it was just like, he has so much built. Like, the problem I had with him is it felt like he didn't have to put in nearly as much work to do the kinds of things that some of like the Overwatch supports, for example, have to do, in the sense that like Jeff can pepper you 3 times and catch your attention. And if you put any amount of damage into him, he can immediately... It's basically like, imagine if Hamster from Overwatch could shoot at you, you know, for like burst damage and not just like this little pitiful cannon he has. And then anytime he went into his ball form, he was also healing and made himself nearly impossible to hit. That's kind of what it was like fighting Jeff, and that's no fun. Now, granted, sometimes he's wasting his time by doing that because he's not actually getting anything done, and I'm sure teams don't like that. But I don't know. To some extent, it was like he felt like the tipping point of like, okay, you went too far into making a character that has the capacity to go and do that, and made it way too easy for him to get away with doing it, and like made it nearly impossible to fully punish him for doing that.
Yeah, I mean, also, I will say that another reason why that is the case is that man's survivability. The fact that he was, like you say, he was healing his bubbles, he could just bubble himself, get speed boost from the bubble, so he was moving faster. Yeah, his survivability was pretty high, and I feel like that's the biggest thing. Like, a character that's really good at winning duels, also having incredibly high self-sustain, is definitely going to be obnoxious to play against. It's one of the reasons why Venture is really annoying to play against in Overwatch. The fact that this character is not only doing so much damage to you, but is also able to sustain themselves in some way, shape, or form. But with Venture, it's just generating overhealth, and then digging away, and then you can't interact with them at all. So yeah, that character archetype, that type of interaction, is definitely intrinsically frustrating.
There is, I mean, I don't know. I think all of this kind of also gets at this has nothing to do with the competitive balance of Marvel Rivals, but it gets at the core of like what a lot of people don't like about the game, which is that, they have these really cool Marvel IPs, but a lot of it feels like it's kind of basic abilities that just have some interesting flavor text to them. Like the tanks, for example, don't feel like they have as much like depth as the Overwatch tanks do, for example. And as you mentioned, it's hard to be able to strike that balance when the game is as young as it is compared to Overwatch going on 8 years, right?
Yeah.
But it's also a valid, it's valid for people to say that right now so that they can hopefully fix it and make... Because like no one also wants to play the tank role in Rivals either, because the game is open queue, and if you have 4 people playing DPS, your ability to tank is just not... You just don't have any. right?
That was a similar problem with Overwatch before role lock. That was a very, very similar issue. I played Overwatch back then. Yeah, that was how I became a support player originally. It's just that no one wanted to play support. It was just literally 4 or 5 DPS every game. It's tragic. It's definitely tragic. I don't know if Marvel Rivals will or should go the role lock route. I haven't played that game enough to have that strong of an opinion on it. I do know there are people, some voices within that community that are definitely asking for it, and I also know there are people that are pushing against it. So I don't know what they'll decide to do.
What are some of the specific things that you think are wrong with the Overwatch player base that makes the game feel less enjoyable to play than it did, than the original game did?
Okay, I can't really pinpoint anything that is not also present in Overwatch 1, but I'm gonna say what I feel has been amplified within Overwatch 2. Mm-hmm. I think the community has socially just gotten worse. I think they're just meaner. I think they're just really freaking mean. I think this community is just negative and nasty. I don't think they're the worst gaming community by any means, no. But there's just everyone in this community actively fights for their right to be a jerk. Like, I remember not too long ago, actually quite a bit ago at this point, I made a TikTok saying, like, being a good person is more important than being a good player. And I had people avidly disagreeing with me. Avidly disagreeing, like straight up arguing and going back and forth with me to the point where I can make multiple TikTok responses to it. There are people that genuinely believe, like, no, it's being a good player matters more than being a good person. I don't care if a person's absolutely vile and horrible as long as they have a positive KD. And it's like, that's a problem. I think that's genuinely terrible. The second thing would definitely have to be what I would say the sense of entitlement. There are players in Overwatch 2 that I just think that don't understand. It takes time to get good at things. Not just video games, at things. Like, there are people who are like, oh, I'm like, oh, okay, when did you start playing Overwatch? They're like, oh, just playing Overwatch 2. I just started playing Overwatch during the time of Overwatch 2, and they're mad that they're not already Diamond, that they're not already GM. And I'm like, come on, like, dude, you're new to hero shooters. You're still figuring out what every character in the game does. Like, do you really think, ask yourself, do you really think you deserve Diamond? And I know they're gonna say, well, yeah, because I played with my Diamond friend and I was holding my own. And I'm like, even the fact that you're making that as an argument shows me that you don't really deserve that higher rank, because that doesn't mean anything. You holding your own just means that you didn't throw. And then also the introduction of the scoreboard in Overwatch 2 has definitely inflated some players' egos. Oh my god, it has inflated some players' egos. You have players who are compared, players who they themselves are doing poorly. I've literally seen this. Players admitting that they're doing poorly, but then looking at one of their teammates on the scoreboard that's doing worse than them and using that as an argument for why they don't deserve to be in that rank. And I'm like, so you acknowledge that you're playing bad, but because there's somebody on your team playing worse, you magically deserve a higher rank.
Or even because they're performing worse in a very, like, specific area, not even, like, overall worse.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, dude, I think the Overwatch 2 community is worse in regards to their toxicity and their cope. Just their capacity to cope. It's impressive to an extent. It's a level of delusion that I both like it worries me a bit, because it's like, dude, I just the detachment from reality is just concerning. But at the same time, it's fascinating, and almost like I almost commend them for it. Like, man, I wish I was this delusional. I wish I could just completely fumble a backflip and tell myself I'm still a gymnast. I wish I could I wish I could literally go into a swimming pool, almost drown, get saved, and still get out that pool. Yeah, I think I can take Michael Phelps. Yeah, I wish I had that level of just I don't even know what to call it other than delusion. It's a level of delusion that I think is it's impressive and concerning. So yeah, cope and toxicity are things that within this community that I think within the Overwatch 2 community compared to Overwatch community have gone up. If I had to attribute it to anything, I would just say it would probably have to be one, the scoreboard, and two, just an influx of players that are new to hero shooters and are upset that they can't keep up.
I'm also very fascinated with just how delusional some of these players are. You have all the people who are like, I would prefer my teammate win my game and hit women than be a good husband and not carry my game of Overwatch, right? And I think those are just the people that are way too deeply entrenched in the game, but like still somehow avoiding the concept of like competitive integrity and being a good sport when playing the game, which is fascinating to me. They play competitive and they're surrounded by players who have a competitive spirit and will try and learn how to be better at things and will be cordial even when they lose and will be cordial to their teammates even when their teammates are very obviously throwing their games, or, you know, stuff like that. I find it fascinating that they can be so deeply entrenched and competitive and still behave that way.
Yeah.
And then I'm also just as impressed by the people who seem to just have such a... I mean, we talk about anti-intellectualism a lot, right? But it's very fascinating to me that there are people who think that they have any place to be speaking about things that they know nothing about. And the proof that they know nothing about it is when you have people who say, this DPS hero is better than this support hero because this DPS hero can do more damage per shot.
Yeah.
Like, how in any capacity do you think you are allowed to speak about how Overwatch should be balanced, or what is good and what isn't, and how you should be playing the game, if that is as binary as you treat the game?
It's because of there's this slippery slope of actually, I guess I'm gonna go into the conversation with a little bit of a not backstory, but just like some background information. I've had this conversation with my girlfriend multiple times about how we need more people. We need to bring back being not conceited, but the idea of being like, yeah, I do know more than you in this context. I do know more than you. Like, I think a lot of people are afraid of feeling that way, or being viewed as like a know-it-all. Right? So you have these people that are afraid of being viewed as know-it-alls, not checking people, like the person you mentioned, not checking people when they're wrong, because they don't want to come off as conceited. They don't want to come off as just like, oh, you think you're better than me? No, I don't think I'm better than you. I just know you're wrong on this topic. So because no one wants to actually tell people that they're wrong on particular topics, you have these people that feel incredibly comfortable saying these incorrect things about Overwatch, incorrect things about things in general, because like I said, we talked about anti-intellectualism as a whole. So it's not even just an Overwatch thing. It's like, hey man, you have put little time and little effort into becoming knowledgeable about this topic. I really don't think you should have as aggressive of opinions as you do. Like, you just shouldn't. And it ties together with the toxicity thing. It's like, hey man, I don't think you should be being as toxic as you are, because you don't know what your team is doing wrong. I've said this before on TikTok before, where it's like, hey, I promise you that if you had a game that you lost, right, and you tried to tell me why you think you lost it, and then we went and had a pro coach review your game, their reasoning that you lost that game would be different. They would give you a different reason because they know more than you. They understand the game more than you. And it's just like a lot of players just can't. They find the idea of being told, hey, you don't understand this game that much, there's somebody that understands the game more than you, as like an insult, and they just really, really, really don't like hearing it. They really don't like being told that they don't understand the game as much as they think they do, because a lot of people have their egos attached to their ability to understand this game.
That was actually something that I was gonna touch on briefly. It's so there's this funny video that I watch every once in a while of these dudes playing like GTA modded races or something, and one of their friends just like blows them out of the water every time, because frankly they're pretty bad. And they never take it to heart or anything. Like, it's a funny moments like video, right? It's nothing serious. But whenever he wins, they're always like, "Bro, why do you sweat at every fucking thing that you do?" And he goes, "I'm not sweating at anything. You guys are just bad." And then his friend his friend jokingly says like, "Your masculinity is tied to your performance in video games." That's exactly what I think of in this circumstance, where I think people are like, gaming is one of the few hobbies that I have, and if I'm not good at it, then I might as well kill myself, right? And so that's a bit extreme. That's a bit extreme, but they're like, well, I pour so many hours into Overwatch. How could I possibly not be good at the game? Because they just, it's like a weird sunk cost in a way, where it's like, well, I've put thousands of hours into the game. What do you mean I'm still in Silver 4? And it's like, okay, well, how do you play the game? Are you looking at external resources to get better at the game? Probably not. But their ego and their self-worth is tied to how well they're doing in a game. And so being told that, like, hey, you don't actually know what you're talking about, like, it tells me that they are just not comfortable with being wrong about anything.
Oh yeah, absolutely not. A lot of people in general just aren't comfortable being wrong about things. You see it in the way that they engage with their hobbies. You see it in the way that they engage with their hobbies.
Yeah, exactly. But then the other thing is, what was the other thing actually? Crap, I don't remember. There's a redeem on your channel called "You Have to Give Us a Hot Take." While I think I may have asked you this on the podcast, this time I'm really like flooring it. What is your spiciest Overwatch hot take that you have? Because you've made TikToks about like, this is a hot take that I have that shouldn't be a hot take, but it still is. But what's a hot take that you have that you think would cause the Overwatch player base to absolutely shatter at its core and and hate you and ask you to leave the blunt rotation?
I have like one or two that I can think of off the top of my head. I just have to kind of construct them into a cohesive statement, or to a coherent statement. I'm a sweaty competitive player, so it's gonna be centered around like it's gonna be directed at the casual players. I genuinely 1,000,000,000% believe that casual players are at the core of every of like the core of toxicity in these games. I 1,000% put like 80 to 90% of the responsibility for the toxicity in these communities on casual players. It is just, I'm sorry, like it's just from my experiences, from what I'm seeing, from when I'm talking to other people. Hell, I have friends that are low ranked players, and I love my friends. Some of them are just really freaking toxic. Like the amount of gold players I know that are genuinely just me. Like I'll be like, I've joked about this on screen, like, oh yeah, I'll be talking to like one of my gold ranked friends, and you know, I'll be like, yeah, it kind of sucks when your teammates don't perform well. Yeah, it's really frustrating. And they're like, nah, saying that ain't enough. I need them dead. It's like, nah, they fucking suck. They some ass. And it's like, they're so much more aggressive than I am. And that's why I open up with saying that I'm a sweaty person. I'm a sweaty competitive player. Like I really, really care about being good at the game. And these players that, like, even from their perspective, admit that they don't care about winning nearly as much as I do, but they're so much more aggressive about losing than I am. Like, they're more mad and more upset and more emotionally impacted about losing than I am. And it's like, dude, like the average, I know players that have quite literally cried because they're on a losing streak in Overwatch. And I'm not trying to hate, I'm not trying to flame, but it's like, dude, I'm sorry, like the facade of the lower rank community, like lower rank players trying to act like, oh, we don't care about this game nearly as much as high rank players. I'm like, I'm sorry, I think it's a mask. I think they're toxic. I think lower rank players are really, really mean, and I think they care a lot more than they're willing to admit. Because it just their lack of care just doesn't show in the way that they interact with people. They flame their teammates. They're constantly angry. They get sad. There's too much emotion coming from them just from the outcome of their games for them to not care in the way that they say that they don't care. It's just I'm not buying it. I think it's all fake. I think they actually care, and they're just really freaking mean.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess I'd be curious, like, if you have any tinfoil hat theory or any underlying reason why you think they feel the need to put on the facade. Because the only real thing that I can think of, mostly just because it happens to be kind of convenient to the conversations that we often have, is that, like, you know, they put on the facade of not caring that much about the game because they don't want to have to actually take the time to learn to get better at the game, because getting better at the game is kind of hard and it takes a lot of time. So if they can pretend like they don't really care that much, then they're like, well, that's my excuse for going 2-12, right?
Yeah.
But then, God forbid, one of their teammates goes 2-12, and they're like, I'm gonna come to your house personally and smash your head through the window. Something like crazy.
Yeah, you're complete. Yeah, that is it. Like, I've gotten into back and forth with low rank players, and that's literally what it is. Whenever they're talking to a player worse than them, it's toxicity and that they're ass. And whenever they're talking to a player better than them, it's, well, I'm not a no life loser like you. That's why I'm not as good as you. Genuinely, that's what it is. That is my. I'm taking the tinfoil hat off. I think that's 1,000% what it is. It's genuinely a bunch of players who they adjust their perspective on the game based off of who they're talking to. If they're talking to someone that's worse than them, it's, oh my god, shut up, you suck, you're a loser, you're so bad at the game, lol, you suck, I can't carry you, loser, you're so fucking dumb. And then they're talking to somebody that's better at the game than them, it's, I'm not a no life loser like you, I have a life, I have a job, I get women, you don't. And it's just like, it's literally very reminiscent of, like, in a less tragic way, because obviously what the example I'm about to give is pretty tragic. Less tragic, it's a less tragic version of the kid who doesn't try in school because they're afraid of appearing dumb. It's kind of like that. It's very reminiscent of that, which, well, obviously that example is a much more sad and much more tragic because it's more has worse real world implications. But I feel like the attitude and the thought process is very similar for these players, where they're just like, I'm just gonna say that I'm not trying because I'm afraid of saying that I'm trying and that I'm genuinely just not good at the game. Because the prospect of putting in all of your effort and still being bad is just terrifying to these people. They're just terrified of the idea of, what do you mean I'm trying my hardest and I'm still unable to do anything? So
It's the beginning of an anime arc.
Yeah.
Like,
literally, except it never happens, because rather than seeing that as motivation to get better at the game, it's like that freaking the Simpsons meme where I can't remember the dude, is that the dude scratching his chin is like, huh, am I the problem? No, it's my teammates. Like, it's like they will never ever look in the mirror and say, you know what, today's the day I get better at Overwatch. They will instead constantly look in the mirror and say, I hope today's the day my teammates are better at Overwatch. They will.
Yeah.
It will never be them. Never will it be them. It will always be this constant hope for their teammates to be. Yes, that's the meme. Yes. Am I out of touch? No, exactly. Yes, that is the meme that I'm talking about. That is them. That is the Overwatch community. That is the majority of players. And like, I wanna follow these up with saying like, I have no beef with with low rank Overwatch players. I have plenty of low rank Overwatch player friends. Socially speaking, I think being good at this game does not freaking matter. It genuinely does not matter. I have not gained any social accolade from hitting my ranks in this game. It does not matter. The only thing I dislike is people who have refused to take accountability, and that's the frustration that I have with lower rank players, is that typically the inability to take accountability results in players being lower rank, and that's the kind of like what ends up happening, is what I think is happening, is that these players can't take any accountability, so they end up hard stuck in the middle ranks. And I'm like, man, I really hate that you can't take accountability. Like, I don't care that you're gold. Like, if you're a gold player and you know how to take accountability, I love you. If you're a gold player that's constantly blaming your teammates, me and you got beef. I can't. I don't like the whole blaming your team. I just don't like it. I cannot stand that attitude whatsoever.
Yeah, it's like something I talk about a lot when I talk with people about like things that are honestly not even really related to games, but just related to just becoming better at something or learning a new hobby or learning a new skill or whatever. Because this is a thing that's happened kind of often with people that I used to know. They would stake so much of their like worth into how good am I at this game, and if they're bad, then they will be very frustrated, and if they are good, then they will have a massive ego about it. But then in any situation where they are bad and they're, down on their luck or whatever, and we're like, hey, here's some information that you could use to become better at this, or anything like that, they're usually like, no, I'm just not going to bother. And it's the way, I think the way that I've described it to some people on the podcast that I run is like, I am not going to be both your life coach and your therapist. I am not going to both teach you how to be better at something and also be there if you decide not to take my advice and then want to come to me to complain about how badly things are going for you or whatever.
Yeah,
and it's like that, but translated to Overwatch, it's like, well, you very often don't do any, you don't do any VOD reviews, you don't watch content creators who are better than you don't think to do testing to figure out how to become better on your own. You don't figure out how to overcome bad matchups. You don't really do anything except for play the game, and not even particularly well at that. And you insist that people feel bad for you because you can't climb when you feel like you should.
Yeah, it's an unrealistic expectation that they have, and they're kind of upset at the world for not allowing their unrealistic expectation to be a reality. And it's like, dude, you have no one to blame but the world is honest with you. The world, I think subconsciously they know that they're not going to climb. I think they subconsciously know, and that's also why they kind of reject the advice, is because they don't actually want to get better. I think some of these players kind of get a little bit of a joy out of being like just endlessly going through the cycle of, oh my god, I hate how poorly this game is going. Man, my teammates suck. Like they genuinely like enjoy doing it, because like that's the only thing I can think of is like, why? Like you said, like why won't you just take the advice, bro? Overwatch wise, life wise, I've had friendships end over stuff like this. Granted, mind you, I've had friendships end kind of Overwatch related. I had a friend who would skip class constantly to play Overwatch, and they were still bad at Overwatch. Like they were still bad at Overwatch. Like, they were still like, I'm telling you, like medal rank on all 3 roles. And we're like genuinely still not that good at Overwatch, and we're skipping class, and we're like, oh, you're about to, make me not be able to like complete my year, or maybe I'm running out of money. I don't have any money. I'm losing my scholarship. And I'm like, okay, yeah, because you keep skipping class. And I told you, like, if you don't want, because college isn't for everybody. I'm not gonna add college is for everybody. It's not. So I'm like, if you don't want to go to college, maybe try some streaming. Maybe try streaming. Maybe content creation or making a career. Maybe you work like not a normal, but like a 9-to-5 job, and you do content creation on the side. They're like, nah, I don't want to do that either. And I'm like, okay, so you don't want to do. Yeah, exactly. You don't want to go to school to get like a higher paying job, relatively higher paying job, and you also don't want to stream while working a maybe lower income job while you maybe try to build up your platform. Like, dude, but you're skipping school for Overwatch, and it's like
you are actively wasting money and not doing anything with it.
And it's like. I do think some people just generally, and this kind of gets even off of Overwatch. I know this kind of like segues off of Overwatch, but like some people just generally do like the attention they get from being in a tough spot more than they like the help that they get while in a tough spot. Yeah, it's just frustrating. It's frustrating to interact with.
Yeah, I was thinking it kind of feels like an offshoot of the people who are actually very intellectual on a subject don't want to seem conceited when they talk down, or when they're talking to people who don't know as much as them, because they don't want to appear like they're talking down to them. Mm-hmm. And I feel like maybe people who want to help people get better at the game go through enough of those kinds of circumstances and situations with people who are not good at the game and insist that they're looking for advice, and then those people don't take the advice. So it eventually gets to the point where this person's like, I am hard stuck gold because my team is bad. What do I do about it? And the people who are actually good, who could give them the information, are like, well, you're not going to take my information anyways, so like I don't care. Like I'm not, you're getting no information out of me. I am not spilling the beans because you're not even going to eat them.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, I agree. As someone who makes educational content, I kind of fell into this conversation not too long ago when I made a video talking about how skill issue. This is another hot take that I made, whereas like skill issue is a very valid response to skill-related complaints. And someone was like, why say skill issue when you can offer them very actual good advice? And I'm like, because players don't take good advice. I can explain lane control to a person. I can explain cooldown management to a person. I should have had people tell me, come to me complaining about their teammates, and then before I even get a chance to maybe potentially say, well, you know, I can maybe offer a VOD or whatever, and they make it very abundantly clear. And don't tell me that like I could have done better. No, my teammates are ass. And I'm like, okay, all right, okay. Like they don't want advice. They want to vent. They want you to join in with them on flaming their teammates. And I'm like, no, I'm not finna flame your teammates, bro. I'm not finna.
Like I wasn't even in that game.
Yeah, bro. I don't know.
What did they fuck me for?
Exactly. I don't know him. For all I know, he a cool dude. I might fuck with old boy. I might be. For all I know, one of my homies was in your game, and I'm talking shit about him. No. I'm not finna talk shit about your teammates. I don't know them. I'm not finna join in with you on like. I'm not finna bond with you about how much I dislike your teammates. No, I understand I genuinely understand the frustration of having teammates that don't cooperate and aren't doing and aren't pulling their own weight. I get that. But you're here talking to me, obviously upset about the outcome of that game. Why are we not discussing the ways in which you could avoid that outcome in the future? Why are we not discussing that? Like, nothing we talk about here complaining about your teammates is going to change whether you win or lose your next game. But me teaching you to maybe play off angles as Genji and understanding your effective range on a character like Soldier might. It might. So yeah, like a lot of these players don't actually want advice. They want to vent. They want to vent, which once again, venting is fine if you want to vent, but it's just like I'm not a good recipient of venting. I'm just not a good especially gaming related venting. Like real life, if you want to vent to me about your like how hard life is, you know, the current economy, hey man, I'm there with you, brother. Yeah. But I'm not finna sit here and be your therapist. Like you say, I'm not finna sit here and be your therapist for Overwatch.
Yeah, if you want me to, and at that point, if you do want me to be your therapist for Overwatch, you better at least like pay me $5.99 for the gift sub.
Exactly, bro. Honestly, yeah, I might. Yeah, if you want me to flame your teammates with you, one sub, sub, and I'll flame your teammates personally. Matter of fact, send me their battle tag. I will add them personally, and I will flame them personally here on stream for you to watch. Like. Because I'm like, yeah, I'm not finna sit here and bond with you over you flaming your teammates. Like the occasional jab here and there, like, oh, I hate it when people wake up like when I sleep somebody as Ana and they wake them up. Okay, I hear you. But when you're like, yeah, someone wakes up my sleeps as Ana, I blame the entire game. No. I blame all of my SR loss on that person. The reason why I'm silver is because people keep waking up my sleeps. No, it's not. No,
yeah, this guy who woke up the Winston that I slept is the reason I didn't get hired at my job.
Yeah.
And you're like, what?
Yes, and like once again, I want to preface: I have no beef against someone for being bad at a video game. It's a video game. It is the obsession with outsourcing accountability. That is my beef. That is my gripe. I really want to make that very abundantly clear. I have no problems with actually engaging with people who are receptive towards advice. Right? You can check out my VODs. You can check out my streams. I am more than happy to help people get better at the game. But if you're just going to come to me and talk about how dog shit your teammates are and how everybody but you is bad at the game and how you are like God's gift to Overwatch and anybody who isn't you is basically Satan in Overwatch form, it's just not my cup of tea. It's just not my cup of tea. It ain't it for me. Maybe for other creators and other people it is. I just don't rock with the whole everybody but me is the problem type of attitude. I don't rock with it. Yeah,
that general behavior is really frustrating, and honestly, like, even just being frustrated with teammates and whatnot is kind of also the point where, like, for me, I was like, okay, I want to try and get better at this game, but at least for me personally, it doesn't feel like it's really paying off very much. Like, I feel like my getting better at the game is not netting me the benefits I was hoping it was going to net me. So I'm gonna stop playing. I'm gonna stop playing the game.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. And that's 1000% fair. Like for a lot of people, I say, hey, man, maybe this, because I haven't seen you get to the point personally about like actually like having like emotional turmoil over the game. But even you reached to a point where you're like, you know what? Maybe this ain't it for me right now. I'm gonna go play. I'm playing some other stuff, and I really do think some people could benefit from that. Because like I said, I know multiple people who have unironically cried over D-ranking in this game. And like once again, no hate, no flame. But it's like at that point, it might be time to go play another game.
You need to get off the game. You need to go touch some grass. You need to go, like, do
Yeah.
anything that brings you joy and not play this game. The only time that I've been in emotional turmoil over this game, I was a teenager. So that should probably tell you about, like, not necessarily about the subcategory of people who behave that way, because I'm not here to imply that all of them are, like, 16-year-olds or whatever, but it is just a game, and you don't even get paid to play it.
So many people try to hide behind the, I'm just competitive, bro. I say this again. I am literally, like, so hyper competitive as a person. I have been competitive at just about every single thing I've ever done in my entire life. I've done competitive chess, competitive spelling, competitive science, competitive math, athletic competitions, competitive Overwatch. I'm sweaty. I am a sweat lord. I constantly compete with myself and with others. I love competing.
You might even be sweaty in this chair right now.
Yeah, bro. I'm damp. I'm damp.
Yeah, same. It's hot in this room.
But like I just like once again, what baffles me is I don't have this level of this like aggressive emotional reaction that these players who claim to be casual have. And it's confusing to me. It's jarring. And I guess it has influenced my perspective on coaching and helping people get better at the game. Is I need to know where your head's at. Like, if you're gonna, you got to be honest with me. You got to be honest with yourself. You can't say I don't care about this game, and then I'm sitting here watching tears stream down your face over a loss. You can't say that. Like, be honest with me and be honest with yourself. You care. You care, bro. You was not finna say, but oh, you care, man. You whimpering. You whimpering, bro.
I see your lip quivering.
Exactly. I can hear it in your voice. Bro, you can't say that. Oh man, I don't even care about this. Is just a game. Is it? like it's yeah. So like yeah, I just with coaching, I need people to be honest with me. Like, hey, be honest. How badly do you actually want to climb? And heck, I coach for a living. I coach in the fitness industry for a living. I ask people, hey, when people want to lose weight, get in shape. How badly do you want this, and for what reason have you want this? I've talked people out of hiring me as a coach because we came to the conclusion that, hey, you don't really want this. You don't really want it.
And that's fine.
Hey, it's fine. Like, I'm trying to run a marathon. Do you really want to run a marathon, guy? Or do you think, or are you trying to gain some brownie points? Or do you really want to lose weight? Or is this for your husband? It's for your husband. Your husband's putting pressure on you. Is it? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're happy with your body. Your husband's just giving you shit. Yeah, like, yeah.
Diabolical.
Yeah, like obviously I don't deliver it like that. Like, we work through it. We try to like work through their reasoning and stuff like that. But it's like there definitely are people.
That's how it comes down.
Yeah, like there definitely are people whose goals are being influenced by external factors, and I feel like there are people who don't want to climb in this game for personal reasons. They want to climb in this game because they feel like it'll win them social brownie points. Like their friends will be nice, that their friends will be nicer to them, or that their friends will respect them more. And I'm like, I promise you,
that's crazy.
They ain't, bro. They ain't nobody gonna be. I promise you, I'm 26. I'm playing this game for almost 8 years. My girlfriend is not dating me because I play Overwatch. She is not dating me because I play Overwatch. At not one time have I sat here and said, babe, I hit GM. And that was, oh my God, this is why I'm with you. Like, never. It just hasn't
yeah,
happened.
if anything, my partner makes fun of me because I still play Overwatch. She's like, what do you mean you started playing Magic the Gathering? I went, I don't know, it's a fun game. And she's like, nerd. And I'm like, I'll kill myself right now.
I do it. Don't try me. Oh, but yeah, so the idea of the attitudes of these players that claim to not care about the game only to get viscerally upset when they can't climb. Upset enough, mind you, to go to the internet and just like hate on people over it, mind you. I feel like these people are just lying to themselves, and it does impact the way I approach coaching, because I'm like, hey man, we gotta get to the root of this. I almost do become a therapist at first, put on the glasses, like, all right, why do you want to climb in Overwatch? Because there's no advice I can give a person, because there's advice I can give a person to climb, but their ability to apply it is completely dependent on why they want to climb. Because if someone wants to climb and have fun, there are certain things I might not talk to them about, like, hey man, because there are certain ways to play this game, correct way to play this game, that are just boring. Like, you sit here on this spot on this angle and you look at stuff. You make sure nobody takes this angle. Like, there are aspects of Overwatch that are pretty boring. But if someone's like, hey man, I value fun over climbing, that's I just want to get like a little bit better to make myself able to have more fun. Okay, cool. I coach that person differently than somebody that's like, I'm trying to hit top 500. And I'm like, okay. We trying to lock in. Are you willing to swap? Yeah. Oh yeah. I don't care what hero play. I'll swap to whatever you. Oh okay. I approach coaching that person very differently than somebody that's like, I play Doom and that is it. Okay. Respectable. Okay. We gonna approach coaching differently. So yeah, get into players just need to be honest with themselves. They just really need to be honest with themselves about why they want to climb and how they want to climb, and they'll be that much closer to actually getting better at the game. 'Cause some of these players, I don't even care about this game, brother. I see you quivering, bro.
Yeah, so you was crying over the mic. Again.
Hey, bro, we heard you sniffling. Dog, we heard you in the mic. You. Oh yes, yes. You unmuted. Yes, we heard you. Oh yeah. Like, bro, relax. It's a game. Chill.
Take a week off the game and then we can talk.
Exactly. Like, hey, bro, man, I'm coming to get you. We're going out to get food, bro. Relax. But yeah, say it. Like I said, my general perspective on these games is it's a game. At the end of the day, it's not that big of a deal. But it's okay to be competitive. Just don't ever let yourself become a version of yourself that you wouldn't be proud of over a video game. Just be a good person, man. Being a good person matters more than being a good player. It just matters significantly more.
And I think the only thing that might matter more than than being better at the game is showing up to CR2_obstacle on Twitch. I think that's kind of the only important thing here. That's like, if you don't do that, then like leave. Get out.
yeah, pretty much. I try my best to push accountability as much as I can. Y'all, you see me and hear me on stream constantly be like, oh, yeah, that's on me, chat. That's on me. Yeah, I made this mistake. Oh, I should have done this differently. Yeah, I'm constantly criticizing myself. I'm constantly thinking about being honest with myself about what it is that I'm trying to do. That's the only way you can climb in this game. You gotta be honest with yourself.
Yeah, and there's a lot of interesting discussion that goes on in these chats, where, you know, to some extent, open conversation is encouraged even among people who are maybe not quite as good at the game, just so that you can gain an understanding of, like, you know, what goes on in like higher levels of play. And if you are at a high level of play, even higher level than this gentleman right here, it's like, okay, you know, you can tell him, like, hey, maybe don't do that. That was very dumb. And he's like, oh, okay. And then you learn from that. You know, like, don't be afraid to get advice from people who are, you know, notably, like, provably better than you, or at least, you know, considering the advice to maybe break the mold on how you are very used to playing the game. There's a whole topic that we didn't even discuss about people playing on autopilot and stuff. So, be very open and conscious to getting better and learning how to break away from the way that you're traditionally used to playing the game and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, do not play on autopilot if you can help it. Unless you're like, I don't know, a content creator that primarily plays quick play or whatever, sure, but like if you're trying to climb in this game, you need to be conscious and deliberate with your decisions. It's the best way to improve. Also, playing to improve rather than playing to climb is a big thing.
Because playing to improve is also how you get over the like emotional state that you're in being tied to the outcome of the game.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, unfortunately we lost, but you know, I feel like I performed really well here, and I mean, there are moments where you can acknowledge that, like, yeah, this teammate really did fuck up the entirety of the match, but you're like, yeah, it's just that. It happened. Yeah. Move on.
Exactly. Just move on, focus on yourself, focus on what you could have done better, and then you're good. Literally, that's literally all it is.
All that's to be said is show up to the CR2_obstacle Twitch channel if you have any further questions that you want to ask the guy, because I'm not going to be relaying these to him from any comments that show up if this goes up on YouTube. Yeah, I think that was about it. I guess that's where we're going to take our leave. I don't really have an official outro for this thing because this is not as well put together of a show as the actual show that I have, which is also not very well put together.